Well, hello there, Snooky Lumps. How y'all doing? It's me, your big, friendly, furry, moohead bovine pal. The guy who's really the kindest, sweetest, most disgusting, arrogant, opinionated, vulgar, and rude individual on the planet all in one hefty but shrinking package. Welcome to the Monday edition of Moohead Radio, and today's program is entitled Football for Dummies. Um, this is like the ultimate black and yellow book. For those people who know nothing about football, that's what we're going to be talking about today, Football for Dummies. Now, don't be surprised if you checked out the show on YouTube and you saw Scott DePodesta's picture representing the program. That's what I'm talking about. Football for Dummies. You know, here's what I can tell you. And I like my real world experience over sports announcers, okay?
If that was the case, I'm surprised you didn't use the Jonah Hill picture from Moneyball.
That would be a good one, too. All right, here's the deal. Real world experience versus sports announcer. Sports announcer is either guy with a good voice who's relatively brainless but has never played the game, or a former athlete who played the game but really isn't a broadcaster. But here, I'm kind of like the certs breath freshener of podcasters. I'm two things in one. No, did I actually play professional football? Fuck no! But I have real world experience, and I know what analytics means. And let me explain to you. In the radio business, we didn't call it analytics. We called it music research, all right? You ever wonder how, Andy Rooney, you ever wonder how radio stations choose the music that they play? I mean, most people just say, oh, they're either playing my favorite song or they're not, and whoop, they either tune out or do whatever they do, or they give, fuck you guys, you always play the wrong songs. I'm never going to listen to you again. But how do radio stations actually select the songs they're playing? And the answer is music research. Now, music research can be an invaluable tool, or you can just be a tool utilizing music research.
Hello.
And let me explain how this works. In the radio business, we would put upwards of 200 to 250 people in an auditorium, predicated upon phone contact about what radio stations they listen to in the market. The vast majority of the 250 people who were in that auditorium listened, and we'll use this to make it easy. In Flint, Michigan, it was CK 105. Or in Binghamton, New York, it was Star 105.7. That was the majority of people in the room. And this is when we first took over the radio stations, so that we knew nothing about except what people told us. What we would do is we would put together what was called a hook tape. Rox, sing us a hook.
No song is in my head right now. Can you believe it?
Never gonna give you up.
Never gonna let you down. Never
Good.
gonna run around and hurt you. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, good. Rox can sing, but she doesn't think as quickly as Brian. This is what we have learned today. So the hook of the song, the beauty is you record the hook of the song, which is usually only about 5 seconds worth. I mean, if you don't, never gonna give you up. If you don't know that, then you've been living in a cave. So we would put together all of these hooks of the greatest recent pop songs, top 40 songs, and we would have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, 750 hooks that were all 5 seconds long. We would pay people who listened predominantly to the station that we had purchased, but also to the adult contemporary station in the market, and that those people would usually be on the little more adulty end of the spectrum. And they would rate the music on 2 criteria. 1, whether they liked it, 1 to 5. 1 being, no, I don't like it. All right. Or 5, I love it. And then familiarity. I know this, I don't know this. That's all we did. 750 to 1,000 hooks being played in front of an auditorium of people. Here's what we found in Binghamton, New York, and here's what we found in Flint, Michigan, which will dispel the notion of radio stations for dummies. Flint, Michigan came back and told us they liked urban-tinged pop music. So a lot of the stuff that we were getting back from white audiences was something that they were exposed to through urban radio, and because they were living in Flint and there was a large urban population. Binghamton, New York was basically as white as a KKK meeting. The thing was, however, that they did not recognize a bunch of music. All of the synth, remember, we took over, Binghamton was 1997, and Flint we took over in 1989, which was really convenient in Flint because that was really the cusp of New Jack Swing, the early stages of hip hop and rap, which was what guided us what titles to play in Flint. In Binghamton, it was crazy. We were trying to find all the synth pop of the 80s, and they didn't recognize a single song. It was unbelievable. But what was coming back as most loved, revered, were hair bands. These people went ballistically happy over Bon Jovi. And we're like, what the fuck? They're living in a time warp here. But then we realized that the only top 40 radio station that existed in Binghamton, New York was a station called WAAL, which was a classic rock station. And they were playing hair bands. And people were being forced to listen to this type of music, which was classic rock, and they didn't have a top 40 radio station. They missed out on a decade's worth of music. So when we started testing songs they did know, it was amazing how urban-y sounds were really not nearly as popular in Binghamton as they were in Flint. And we added songs into our oldies library accordingly. Now, what does this tell me about music research? Is it a valid tool? Absolutely. However, one size does not fit all. If we would have done music research in Flint and taken that to Binghamton, we would have been a sorry wreck of a ratinged radio station we would not have been listened to. It's only good based upon where you are. The idea of music research then was changed and altered. When big companies bought people like me out, they started doing national music research. And there's no such fucking thing, because people with Brian and Phoenix, they like one thing. Okay? And then other people...
Hey, believe it or not, we have like 11 Mexican stations who speak no English whatsoever during their broadcasts.
That's right.
FM and AM. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, and if you go out to, L.A. and the South Central, it's like, I'm going back to Cali. It's like, you're not going to be playing, we were playing very much LL Cool J, but what was big in California wasn't big in Flint, Michigan, and it's certainly not big in Omaha, Nebraska. We can say that with some kind of certainty. Consequently, they bought up all the stations, and they played the same playlists for every single market they were in. And it's no wonder, like I told you in the last show, that radio is not nearly as significant as it was. And they blame the internet for it. No, blame the dummies, because they're lazy. They don't do research in the market that they're in. Now, you say, Mr. Moohead, what in the hell does this have to do with football? Music research and analytics. It's the same damn premise. Analytics are just a way of analyzing things numerically through certain formulas. Now, if it were that easy, everybody'd be doing it. If it was so easy to win in radio, everybody would have done it. But the fact of the matter is people are lazy. You cannot rely strictly on music research because what we discovered is anybody who was smart would listen to the songs we were playing that we researched and they could copy our playlist. So it's what we did between the songs and how we entertained in the local market that made all the difference. Who you draft in Cleveland, Ohio might have something to do with the weather there. You think? You think that if you're in a domed area, like you're playing indoors, that it might be a little different than if you were playing in, Cleveland or Buffalo? The idea of one-size-fits-all analytics bothers me tremendously. And it's the way running football teams has been dumbed down. You don't believe me? Let's start where we are. Did you watch the games this weekend, panel?
Yes.
See some of them, yes.
No.
Somehow that just doesn't surprise me. I'm watching the games and there's an empty seat next to me and I'm like,
She actually means, no, I was cleaning up your dog's shit in the backyard.
That was earlier today. Way to go, Topaz. Hey, come on, shit for her. Good boy.
Hooray for regularity.
Yeah. Like, really hear it for poop. Really hear it.
Thank you, dog.
So, right off the bat, I'm watching Buffalo, and I'm saying to myself, are the Buffalo Bills better than the Cleveland Browns?
Well, they beat them, so obviously not.
Looking at it realistically, what I saw this weekend was a yawn fest. And what it tells me is football's been dumbed down. That was the least downfield throwing that I think I have seen in any set of 4 football games in the NFL for God knows how long. Because defensive coordinators have figured out we got to take away the deep ball from people. And what do you end up with? You end up with this kind of a problem. Lousy offensive lines protecting adequate quarterbacks who are forced to dump the ball off to tight ends and running backs. Look at Drew Brees. He's 86 years old, so give him that. Other than that, who didn't know that every one of those passes you could see on the screen that the running back, what's his name, Kamara? Is that his name?
Alvin Kamara, yeah.
That he was going to get the ball, was going to get thrown to him. You knew. And the whole idea was, well, that's what we do instead of running the ball. And so you just throw it out on the flat, and it's an easy completion. It gets 2 or 3 yards, all right? And it's like, this isn't fun to watch. And the scores are low. It's tedious to watch. And the only thing that really makes the difference in games are the couple of big plays, either defensively or, deep balls, that were thrown in. And I think the Minnesota game was a good example. The one long throw, actually 2 long throws to Phelan, that was it. Other than that, Kirk Cousins was going to shit himself like he always does, but he did make a couple of deep throws. Other than that, both teams just kind of took turns just fucking around. And it came down for the Buffalo.
The pass down to the 2-yard line to Stephon Diggs, that was a pretty good play on his part.
Yep.
Because he would have been drilled after a 3-yard gain.
Yeah, but
if he'd run the ball.
So I can tie it all together. If anybody wants Stefanski in Cleveland after that, then you're just a fucking moron. You're a fucking moron, and I don't want to hear from you. Do you realize they had the game won on the 2-yard line? They run the ball up the middle, get it to the 1-yard line, and he pitches it backwards. It's like, you like that, Cleveland? You like that? That's what we got used to. You probably like that. You play with yourself when it happens. If it weren't for a low percentage fade that happened to work, partially because the guy pushed off and partially because of a mind-numbingly horrible play by a defensive back, if he knew he was out of position, if you interfere with them, the ball goes back to the 1-yard line, you stupid fuck. But unfortunately, the low percentage play worked. Well, unfortunately, if you're the Saints. But it was like watching Marty Schottenheimer versus Marty Schottenheimer. It was like, I'm going to let my defense win it. I'm still waiting for my defense to win it. It was bad. So Stefanski, to me, he's just a guy who's got no creativity, nothing whatsoever, and there's no reason why.
Freddie Kitchens 2.0.
Yeah. I mean, why in the hell would you pitch the ball backwards and lose 3 or 4 yards on a play at the goal line? Why would you allow that? And wasn't Craig Robertson a Brown at one time, Rick?
I'm beginning to think everybody was a Brown at one time.
Yeah, there were a lot of Browns and Buckeyes on that field.
Quite a few, for sure.
So, I mean, right off the bat, I don't want to have anything to do with him. Greg Roman, okay? I looked up this just for you guys, all right? This is hard to say. Greg Roman's offense. Let's take a look at receptions, shall we? Mark Ingram caught 26 passes, all right? But now we're going to go to the wide receivers. Willie Snead, a big 31. Ooh, scare me. It's Halloween. Marquise Brown. Ooh, big threat Marquise at 46 receptions. You ready for this? Mark Andrews, tight end, 64 receptions. Nick Boyle, backup tight end, 31 receptions. Hayden Hurst, tight end number 3, 30. That's right, folks. 105 receptions. 105 receptions by tight ends. And you want Greg Roman in Cleveland without the athletic quarterback? Now, could you imagine Greg Roman's offense without Lamar Jackson? Could you imagine that?
Well, he would.
That was the last 2 years of Colin Kaepernick. When
if you do have Roman,
10.
Go ahead, Jake.
If you have Roman, you'd have to throw to Njoku, and we don't throw to tight ends ever, so that would not work.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that Roman's offense is no offense at all. He relies on the threat of a quarterback who's got freakish skills and a running game that's really good, but really, when push comes to shove, 130 plus receptions are to running backs and tight ends. His wide receivers account for nothing. They're not throwing the ball down. I mean, they throw the ball down the field like a pitcher throws a changeup. That's not what you need. You got Baker Mayfield. You don't have Lamar Jackson.
Preach.
I mean, that's not the way you get it done in Cleveland. And this is what Football for Dummies is all about. Look at who we're interviewing. Oh, we're going to go with the hot guy who's turned it around in Baltimore. And we have a fucking statue for a quarterback. A guy who couldn't possibly run away from anybody. Or we're going to interview Stefanski, who's no different than what we've been seeing. I mean, this is
DePodesta's guy.
DePodesta is a 2-day-a-week guy who could seamlessly move from baseball to football because he doesn't know the game. Because all he does is one size fits all. And you know something? Football for Dummies is like computers for dummies or anything else for dummies. The reason you're a dummy is that either A, you're incapable, or B, you're unwilling to learn. Jimmy Haslam is maybe both, but I would say more than anything with a trucker's mentality, probably somewhat limited, but at the same time, unwilling to learn. He's willing to say, hey, this one-size-fits-all magic pill, this silver bullet, is going to conquer all of the ills in Cleveland. It's analytics that we need. Football for Dummies. They did it to radio. They're doing it to football as we speak. Where are the creative offensive minds? You're going to tell me the Browns just interviewed Eric Bieniemy? Eric Bieniemy, for one thing, has eaten Romeo Crennel out of house and home. What the fuck? That guy looks like he should be in a goddamn Macy's Day Parade. Second of all, he's got Patrick Mahomes. Who else does? Do you want to see Eric Bieniemy's offense without Patrick Mahomes?
Nope.
He's a one-trick pony. One trick is all he'll ever know. Paul Simon. Yes, Stephen.
Oh, no, I wasn't raising my hand.
Oh, okay.
I was going along with your tune.
Oh, okay. You were dancing like Rox does.
He was showing you that he had rhythm.
And
The human metronome.
Yeah. Kind of like a windshield wiper.
Oh, hey, Mr. Moohead, we did figure out who the caller was that called into your show last Monday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was none other than Mason Rudolph.
Haslam would, yeah.
No, we're not.
Haslam would, yeah.
We're going forward. We're not going backward.
Not this kid.
Yeah,
Hey, that is a guy Haslam would hire.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at the Cleveland Browns is that we're looking for love in all the wrong places. And, it's always the hot candidate. It's always, well, God, look what the 49ers are doing. Well, we got to talk to their defensive coordinator. Ooh, look at, who's got the winning record? So we're going to emulate them by doing something similar to what they're doing, but with less qualified people. That would be like people saying,
Oh, crap. Does that mean we're going to end up with Tony Romo as our GM?
Could be.
Because that's what they did with, what's the name of that safety? The 49ers GM was pulled out of the booth to become their GM.
Lynch.
John Lynch.
Yeah, John
Safety with Tampa Bay.
Well, that's what we're dealing
and
with.
Denver.
Yeah.
Well, what we have is coaches now who have the strong position and GMs are the weak position. I mean, there was a time of the strong GM and the head coach who followed rank and file, but now it's the day of the weak GM and the stronger head coach. And so when you hire the wrong head coach and you give him power and authority, then what happens is it all goes crapola. And you have a weak-willed general manager who doesn't know shit. And the reason you end up with a weak-willed general manager who doesn't know shit is because guys like 2-day-a-week Podesta, they tell you that they can do it all with analytics. Just like the radio people could tell you, we've done national music research. You've got nothing to worry about, folks, here in Phoenix. And then they proceed to play Jerry Vale records, okay? This is what we have to deal with in the world today. Every one of these candidates, the reason you're not happy with them is in your heart, they never accomplished anything. There is no evidence that they've ever accomplished anything. And in fact, there's no evidence that they have been able to do what they're able to do with a different type of cast of characters. I want somebody who knows how to use Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham, and Jarvis Landry. And that is not Greg Roman. That is not Greg Roman. It is not Eric Bieniemy. It isn't. God.
A good option, although he has coached a very good player for a long time?
Yeah.
Carmichael for the Saints. He's coached an undersized quarterback in Breeze for the last 12 years and led that offense.
And, but what happened there? I mean, I was watching a team, and it's like, I didn't see that, Breeze's arm.
Sean Payton is the one that creates the offense and calls all the plays. So his responsibilities are only Monday through Friday.
But, well, here's the other thing that I noticed about Drew Brees in that football game is that when he did go back to throw and wanted to go downfield, his protection didn't hold up. And Drew Brees might be considered one of the great passing quarterbacks of all time. All right? But at the same time, when he doesn't have time to throw, he turns into a fumbler at the critical moment of the game because the entire line collapses in front of him and he has no escapability. A young Baker Mayfield doesn't have escapability either. And folks, the way that you handle Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham, and Jarvis Landry, and David Njoku, and anyone else you have out there, you got to have an offensive line. If you're going to pass the football, you got to have an offensive line. And what I see weakened is that I'm looking at Tom Brady at 43 years old or whatever he is, that throwing those quick outs to Julian Edelman. And when Edelman dropped one at an important part of the game, that fucked the whole team up because they're gaining yards 4 or 5 yards at a time. They're not big strikes down the field. And the reason is when they get a penalty and they're back in third and long, they get sacked. That's when turnovers happen. And that, again, is where the conservative nature says, well, we're just going to run the draw play on third and long and be done with it. And that's how you end up with 20-17 games. Because nobody's willing to take a chance anymore. And there aren't seemingly enough good offensive linemen. And the defensive coordinators realize we can go man to man on the wide receivers with impunity because the offensive line can't block what we're throwing at the quarterbacks, except for the Lamar Jacksons and the Patrick Mahomes and the quarterbacks who have speed. Because the slower guys who are good downfield passers, they're fucked. The receivers, if you got to throw to men who are covered if you have time to throw it all down the field. And you're going to turn Baker Mayfield into a check down Charlie. That's what happened to Drew Brees.
Unless you've got a gadget player like Taysom Hill on your roster, and then maybe you can create your mismatch.
Yeah.
And get a 20-yard completion for a touchdown.
The other thing is, you look at the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, he's horrible. Guy winds up and just throws the fucking ball as hard as he can. He threw the ball in an easy pick six, but he threw it so hard the defensive back couldn't hold on to it. It drilled him and left a dent in him. I mean, Josh Allen is nothing. Overrated, but he could run. And hell, even Taysom Hill runs a 4.4. And that's what makes that confusing to the defense. They can't account for that additional athlete on the field. But what defensive coordinators know is that when you have a downfield thrower, you don't have to account for that guy as a running individual. Defenses will morph. And I guarantee you that Lamar Jackson at some point in time will have to throw the ball down the field more frequently. But it's a unique situation for Greg Roman. It's a unique situation for Eric Bieniemy. But the rest of the league doesn't have that. You know who they have? Quack, 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 you fucking ignorant nose pickers. That's what you've got. You've got Mason Rudolph. You got to run for your life. You got people who can't move. They're just like stumps. You got Carson Wentz. That was a dirty hit. Nah, you just can't get out of the way anymore, Carson. You're old. You're old already because you're all busted up. Didn't you love that game? 17-9. I was jumping out of my seat. It's like, oh, it's a one-score game. Oh, this is so exciting. Go ahead, Steven.
I said that that didn't look like a dirty hit by Clowney. It looked like it was clean.
I know. They got to say something because the guy can't get out of the way. And Bronk, you're right. Josh Allen is a better-looking Derek Anderson. Wind him up and throw him. He's a fastball pitcher.
Josh Allen runs better. I had I told him, I had to watch Anderson with the Cards, and Jesus Christ, he was garbage by that point.
Well, he was garbage from the beginning. He was immobile. But remember this, and it's something that will come back to haunt him. Josh Allen, for all the, Buffalo made it to the playoffs. Any asshole who's getting sacked and tries to lateral the ball backward while he's falling to the ground is an incredibly stupid human being. And he's an accident waiting to happen. And the guy...
And he fumbled the ball, too, to give the Texans the score when he fumbled it at the 50 by sticking his arm out, trying to stretch when he should have just went down, and he fumbled it.
And he, yes, he can throw the ball hard, and sometimes he can fit it in, but more often than not, no. I mean, it was like watching Kirk Cousins, throwing passes 7 yards short of receivers. I mean, it's like who wants to lose this game, not who's going to reach out and grab it. It's the fucking playoffs, god damn it! Who in the hell is playing this tight to the vest?
And Mr. Muhammad, I had a question. The Bills fans were accusing the Texans of cheating in that controversial touchdown called back at the start of the second half where our guy threw the ball to the referee and the referee backed up. But some people said they need motion to give up for the touchback. And most people said, well, he never signaled a fair catch or he never nailed the ball. So the Bills should have got that touchdown on the board, which would have gave him 20. I don't know if you saw that play or not, but do you think that was the right call for them to turn it around?
Yeah, I don't think that anybody got shafted. I think the reason, it's like Scotty Norwood. Buffalo, like Cleveland, has found more ways to lose important games. And in this instance, it always bites you when you have a quarterback who's just not going to be able to move the chains and it's going back and forth and back and forth. The other team has a quarterback who is just better, and you end up hitting the son of a bitch twice in the backfield and letting him get away and throw the pass that wins the game, basically. Great play by Deshaun Watson, but a horrific play by the Buffalo defense. And it's that same mentality of, it's Sean McDermott. Well, we're going to let the defense win this one. Well, they didn't, did they? You had the ball countless times to put that fucking game away, and you didn't do it. You didn't do it. And the reason is you couldn't do it because you got no fucking offense. You got no fucking offensive coordinator. You got no fucking quarterback. And there's no way you're going to move and sustain drives with an inaccurate thrower who completes 54% of his throws.
And they had the ball, too, on the 38 in overtime. And that's after we couldn't score because Darren Fells dropped that pass, just like Elderman did when he was wide open. They had a chance to beat us.
I mean, they should have won the football game, but they didn't. Yeah. And, again, you knew they were going to lose because it's Buffalo. And you were just saying to yourself, how is it going to happen? And I'm holding my head going, I can't believe it. A guy hits him from one direction, a guy hits him from the other direction, and neither of them wrap him up.
Nope.
They're
Especially
just trying to
wrap him up.
I mean, and that guy's a big guy. I mean, you got to wrap these people up. I mean, if nothing else, you got to hold that guy by his legs so that the second guy drops him. It's but watching these games and looking at the Cleveland Browns, I'm saying you're damned if you hire any of the people they're interviewing. You're damned. It's not going to work because we don't have that group of people. It's no different than saying, well, I'm going to play hip-hop music in Binghamton. It's like, if people aren't living there who listen to it, why would you play it?
All right.
And the same thing holds true. If you've got these wide receivers, why in the hell would you hire an offensive coordinator who throws to tight ends when you don't have one? Why? And do you think Greg Roman just happened to carve this offense out because he's a genius? Fuck no. He carved out this offense because he has a quarterback who he's not sure could consistently throw the ball down the field accurately. And he has this guy with an incredible skill set to run the football, so he's basically got a running back by committee thing, and the one who's most athletic and explosive is the guy taking every snap from center. So, and I think, the Taysom Hill thing is a perfect example of how you defeat what I'll call the analytics people. We've reviewed the film, and this is what we see, this is the tendencies. And then the few teams that do it differently beat the snot out of it.
There's a great movie that Clint Eastwood did called Trouble with the Curve, and it goes...
He's a scout?
It goes in depth into the scout versus analytics. The analytics guy who played... the guy played Shaggy in the Scooby-Doo movies. he's playing the analytics guy who's fallen in love with this power hitter, and they sent Clint Eastwood to go out and watch him, and his eyes are going, so he hears the ping off of the bat when he hits a curveball, and he goes, that was a hanging curve. He's not going to do that at the major league level, and wanted him to pass. The analytics guy won. They drafted him number 1. His daughter finds a kid that was the son of the maid at their deal, who happened to be an illegal, and he's blowing curveballs right past him.
Yeah.
So scouting and the eye test has to count for something.
No, I mean, I remember Andy
Yes,
Marte.
Dave, it is a fucking long story. Suck it up.
Yeah. Well,
How many times have I put up with your fucking long stories, asshole?
Who are you talking to, Brian?
Bronk.
Oh.
I mean,
Well, you two are like cats and dogs. Yeah. Yeah,
Look at Matt Laporta in the league. Could not hit a curveball. No one knew that through 20 years of baseball he played.
Yeah, that's right.
Until he was 24 to learn he can't hit a curveball. Okay.
Yeah, he was the prized possession in the Sabathia trade, and and then Andy Marte was the guy who was the top prospect supposedly from Boston. Remember, the third baseman? He couldn't hit the hook either. It's one thing if they're grooving AAA fastballs at you. It's altogether another thing to be able to hit off-speed pitches and to be able to pick up the spin of the ball off the hand of the pitcher. It's a different thing, and you have to see that. Instead, they have now 85 million statistics, that they want to run by. And what do the Cleveland Indians have? They have 6 outfielders now who are exactly the same. They hit for no power. They hit for a low batting average. They strike out far too often, and they're lousy defensively. Now, how can that happen? It's to be remarkable. And then you have this on Cleveland.com, the headline: the Browns coach job requirement, love Baker Mayfield and the young core. It isn't about loving anybody. It's about making them work in an environment that plays to their strengths. Baker Mayfield is not going to beat you with his feet. He's going to beat you with his arm. And if you got to spread the field, you got to spread the field. You got to give him time to throw. People say, well, what's the difference, between Baker this year and last year? Because the average amount of time that he took to complete passes was 2.7 seconds. That was how long. And he didn't have near that time this year. And they had an offense that, quite honestly, according to Monken, who I still can't believe is in Cleveland, after he told teams after games and before games even, what a mess this team is. Nobody knew that offense anyway. So between the uncertainty and the lack of time with Hubbard and with Greg Robinson and all of the problems with the offensive line, it's no wonder that Baker Mayfield wasn't Baker Mayfield this year. You got to have offensive linemen who protect them, and you've got to have a scheme that they understand, that is practiced in before the season, in preseason, and during the season. You got to run the plays that you practice, Freddie. Not put plays that you didn't practice into the game plan, and you wonder why the shovel pass never worked. So, and now if you didn't hear, the Browns will interview Josh McDaniels for their head coach vacancy on Friday. Doesn't that make you feel warm all over like you pissed yourself? And on and on and on it goes. There has to be somebody who is intelligent and creative enough, to be able to devise something utilizing the talent that we have. But you got to think out of the box. What we did in Flint, Michigan on the air was rude, man, and vulgar because it was a rough and ready union town. People loved controversy in Flint, Michigan. Binghamton, New York, people were like the nicest people in the world. If I'd have run the same kind of humor and the same kind of live events that we ran in Flint, in Binghamton, I'd have been run out of town on a rail. I mean, you just can't bring somebody in from a completely different system and then put them in with a bunch of players who just don't fit that scheme. You've got to have coaches who are creative, who see what they have and then use what they have. And none of these people are like that. All it is the Johnny come lately. All it is the guy who happens to be with an organization that just happens to be winning. I mean, I saw Wade Phillips got fired by the Rams. 72 years old, he still wants to coach, but the thing is that his defense was 17th ranked, about midline. And some of the games they were absolutely dominating, but when it mattered most, when they needed to win, he gave up 2 third and longs in a critical football game at the end of the season, and he gets fired. And I'd say maybe Jared Goff didn't look as good as he did the previous year because they were all over his ass. He didn't have time to stand back there and throw. The guy has spindly legs. We knew that coming out of college. He doesn't have a plus arm. What he did is he had an offensive scheme that worked, but when his offensive line perished in front of his eyes, not a prayer. He's not going to fit the ball into narrow spaces. He's not going to do that. And he's not going to escape pass rushes either. It's the same thing all over the league. Same damn thing. So I'm not high on any of this shit, you know? I think the Browns are high on analytics and sniffing glue. That's what I think.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to stop
Well,
sniffing glue.
Mr.
And-
Muda,
Yeah, go ahead.
do you think the 7-on-7 era of football where guys want to play receiver and eventually they just get too big are thrown at line in high school or 8th grade, is that an issue where they don't play line their whole life and build for it?
You know, it's an interesting question because I'm of the old school opinion watching the game from decades of watching it, that the best offensive linemen were groomed in an organization. They were people who, they were drafted in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, you know? And they became good players by sitting and learning. And then when they got out onto the field, they learned techniques from other offensive linemen who passed that education on to them. Guys now are coming out of college, and the college game is so pronouncedly different than the professional game that, you know, you're looking at running quarterbacks, you're looking at a lot of running the football, and you're looking at wide receivers who are just way faster than the guys who are covering them. And quarterbacks can get the ball, rid of the ball a little bit faster, and the people rushing the quarterbacks aren't as consistently good as they are at the NFL level. And the offensive linemen are not prepared for what they're getting. These guys who are rushing the passer from the linebacker position, the blitzes, and even the interior linemen, these are big men, but they have explosive speed in a short range of the field. You don't see that at the college level. And to be honest with you, I mean, look at who these teams are playing.
Yeah.
You know, if Alabama didn't start out the year with Troy State, for God's sakes, then who is it? You know, it's like, it was like watching the old Syracuse basketball team, Syracuse with Jim Boeheim, watching them play Lemoyne College, you know, and playing community colleges in Pennsylvania. You know, the first 4 games of the year are gimmies. So you're going to be 4-0 before the season even begins, basically. You know, it's a different world. 16 games and people who are playing their lungs out every week. You can't take plays off. You can't do it. Offensive linemen are gold in the NFL right now, and the reason that we're going to the dink and dunk, even that Drew Breeses are going to the dink and dunk, is the offensive line cannot keep the athletic pass rushers off the quarterback.
Well, just think, every play in college at the RPO could be a run play. So linemen in college are taught to block. They have an extra yard downfield. They're run blocking every play. They don't really have straight pass protection in college so much anymore because you always have the receiving back to help out.
True.
I mean, it's how many empty backfields did we see for Baker this year?
Too many.
That's like licking your chops, man, with Hubbard on one side and Robinson on the other. The defense is licking its chops because there's no way that Baker's going to get out of it. Well, why is Baker flushed out? He runs to the right every time. He's slow. He's not supposed to be running or sprinting out anywhere. He's supposed to be in the pocket, throwing the football, stepping into the throw. Hello? But if there's no time, there's no time. So the first thing I do, get rid of Greg Robinson, get rid of Hubbard, and start getting some linemen and figure out what their strength is. That's where film comes in handy. Let's take a look at, are they better run blockers? Are they better pass blockers? And you start implementing those guys. And with the play calling in mind, you do not let the guys who are really good run blockers but lousy pass blockers, on the field on 3rd and long. And that's just basic smarts, which our head coach did not have. So, it's and when you're forced to commit more men into the backfield, then you have less utilization of certain players, and it creates problems. Freddie wanted an empty backfield, and he didn't have anyone up front to block. That's why Baker Mayfield had a lousy season, in a nutshell.
So the running back coach wanted the empty backfield.
Who stumped Mitchell?
Kitchens was the running back coach last year, and he wanted the empty backfield.
No, Stump Mitchell was the running backs coach.
I mean, last season. Wasn't Kitchens the running back coach? Or
Yeah,
was
he started off as the running backs coach.
You meant the year before. Oh, yeah.
And he went and he ditched the run game for half of every game this year.
Yeah, he took that away from him, though, and look at how much better Chubb did. I mean, the fact is, the running game was the only thing we could hang our hat on. But then, mystifyingly, we would end up not running the football. It was just like watching, watching Taysom Hill just destroy them on successive runs, and then trying that deep drop back pass, and there were two men on top of Breeze so quick, and he just looked like chariots of fire, man, at the end of the fucking trying to get out of that pocket. It was born to fail. It's just difficult, I don't know. My estimation is you gotta hire creative thinkers, and if you're looking at football for dummies, and if you're looking for the one size fits all, like Jimmy Haslam is doing, and he keeps saying, "I know we got it wrong." Well, the reason you keep getting it wrong is you don't understand the game, and maybe you just shouldn't own a football team, because if you keep making the wrong decisions, you're just not in the right business. Maybe you're good at something else, like not paying out rebate checks or whatever it is you do. But you're not a football owner. You shouldn't be in the game. And, you got to know how to interview people. And just saying we're going to interview Mike McCarthy, it don't mean nothing. It don't mean nothing. I mean, yeah, Mike McCarthy is going to go where Mike McCarthy is going to go. And he sees better opportunity for publicity and salvation in Dallas. People are not going to come to Cleveland with 10 years of, without a winning record and 20 years of utter expansion frustration. They are not going to come to Cleveland.
The other part of the McCarthy going to Dallas. Look at the rest of the division. You have the Redskins that are always in flux. You've got that's 2 wins. You got the Eagles, and who the fuck is the other team?
Giants with new quarterback Daniel Jones.
So you got 4 to 5 wins in your pocket, and you're going to be playing for the division title against the goddamn Eagles. So when you look at the Browns, you're looking up at the Steelers. You're definitely looking up at the Ravens. There's no way you're going to win a division title, and you can't go to the playoffs without being a division winner.
Well, I mean, it's
And all else being equal, I mean, the Cowboys aren't significantly worse than the Browns, so I'd take the Dallas job too, and put up with the Joneses instead of dealing with Haslam.
Right.
He's eating on screen again.
I had to. I'm sorry, folks. I
Well, there goes my appetite.
That's
Welcome to Dinner with Steven.
people are saying, "How are you losing so much weight, Mr. Moohead?" It's like, with Steven on the show, babe. I mean, you know, I'm watching him inhale that plate of food, and
I'm eating pork roast, by the way, out of the crock pot.
oh, really?
Yeah, it's really good. Simmer,
Nice.
tender, has little fat pieces on it with broth. It's good.
Yeah, crock pot. That's old school.
Yeah.
Tapeworm.
God, you're
But you
making
actually have
friends
time
with
to
rocks. You say crock pot and any roast, man. Rocks is going to come over to your house.
Mm.
You know what she's going to say?
More to pass around.
Rump roast.
No, she's going to say, "Get in my belly." Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was going to be cornbread. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
No, actually, she makes a wickedly good cornbread.
Gluten-free.
Gluten-free cornbread that she made. Yeah, it was awesomely good. I mean, look at how slim I'm becoming. My God. I mean, this is awesome. Yeah. It's like
Wasting away.
and I'm aging. I mean, the other thing is about losing weight, you know, it's like keep eating, Stephen, keep eating. Because look what happens to your fucking neck. I start looking like one of those turkey vultures. This is like fucking Tyrannosaurus Rex. You know, Jesus Christ, it's not good.
Fat lives matter.
Yeah, crock pots were really good inventions, and now, you know what all the rage is now is sous vide.
Well,
Sous
we
vide
have
cooking.
we have an Instapot, and that's actually more like a crock pot, and it's really nice to be able to cook something in 15 or 20 minutes that would normally take 2 hours in a crock pot.
Oh, is that like a pressure cooker thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, pressure cookers are cool. That get you, you know, you can make soup like in an hour. You know, it's not as good as if
30
you simmer it forever.
30
but-
minutes. 30 minutes for 3 quarts of good chicken noodle soup with the bone in the chicken.
The guy likes the turkey vulture reference. Yeah, I know. I keep aiming the goddamn camera higher and higher. So, you know, it's kind of like, you know, you don't want to be, you know, what I could do is just like, welcome to the show. I'm your host. You know, so I just take all the creases out of my face altogether. You know, it's like, there you go. Now I cut the neck off. But then you start going, you know, now it's like, it's awful.
Hey, so Mr. Moohead, who would you like to see at GM for the Browns? Is there any names that you like? Anybody? Or
No, because there's nobody with authority who's going to take the position because of De Podesta and the fact that they're going to, and the head coach has to approve. So it's going to be some guy who's never done the job before, who's going to be glued to the hip of the coach, who's going to be glued to the hips of De Podesta and Haslam. It is a no possible win scenario. The
3 and
dummies,
13,
it's
here we come, right back where we started from.
This is the football for dummies. They honestly believe that it's like, and you can always tell a rat when it's caught in a maze. It looks something like this.
There's cheese in here. I know there's cheese.
Yeah.
Mr. Moohead,
Where's
It's
the
like,
cheese?
well, we gave the experienced GM a chance. Now it's going to be analytics. It's like, yeah, but you gave analytics a chance with Sashi Brown. You drafted every bad guy you could. Well, we're going back and try it again because we're going to do better this time.
Till we get
It's
it
a rat in
right.
a maze. Fucking
Sounds like
football
a-
for dummies.
sounds like a train wreck ready to waiting to happen, Mr. Moohead. It's like watching a movie when you already know the end, and when you already know the ending to it.
If you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing. That's all there is to it. You know, if you don't know, you don't know, and you think you're good, and you're going back and forth like a ping pong ball. You know, there is no, and every year or two you fire the coach and you start saying, well, I guess that wasn't right, but we'll try it another way. You know, could you imagine if you went to see David Copperfield and you paid face value of the ticket $500 to see David Copperfield perform in Vegas, and he does an illusion, and the illusion, he's supposed to disappear, and instead he's standing on stage and he says, I'll do better next time. Good night, everybody. I mean, how long would people be paying to see David Copperfield not disappear? And that's the thing. People in Cleveland are being asked to pay every year. And it's the team that disappears. And it's terrible.
So is Haslam and all them running in that maze too with that rat?
That's who the rat is. I mean, he's the one calling the shots. In the end, the buck stops here. He's the one calling the shots. And it's, you know, and this is what his decision is. I'm bringing it back to the way it was, which means I'm going to hire people who report directly to me and D, who know nothing about football, and they're all joined at the hip together, and they have to listen to me and D Podesta, who know nothing about football.
So it's rinse and repeat, same thing. Rinse and repeat, same.
Yeah, with different, you know, and the coach and the GM are all expendable, but D Podesta stays and has one stays. Yeah. The old common denominator, you know.
Haslam probably bought the maze, but he got it at IKEA. 50 parts.
Social Security said, what do you think of Jason Garrett as head coach?
No, I mean,
said in the comment section.
I really don't know enough. I mean, what I saw is that Dak Prescott really hasn't emerged. He had that really big rookie year, which is starting to look like Baker Mayfield. And after that, maybe people got a little wise to him. He wasn't supposed to be that strong a quarterback coming out of college. There's a lot of question marks about him. Where was he out of? Was it Mississippi or Mississippi State?
Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Fourth round, I believe.
Yeah, he just wasn't. They questioned a lot of things about him. Then he had that great first year, but he hasn't lived up to it since. And you know that Jerry Jones is a meddler and that he's got a lot to do with the problems there. Jason Garrett, I don't know. I'm not. Matter of fact, I don't like the Cowboys. I think it's overblown. There's way too much talk about them for so little. But do I want him in Cleveland? No, I don't know enough about him that I would say, no, absolutely not. But I can tell you that I don't want Josh McDaniels, and I don't want Eric Bieniemy, and I don't want Greg Roman, and you know these people I don't want. There's no reason.
Tom Coughlin.
Or Dayball.
Oh no, Dayball. Oh God, no.
It seemed like the Redskins did okay.
No. You guys keep pronouncing it wrong. It's D-ball. D-ball.
D-ball.
Yeah,
like the Redskins did good hiring. They got Ron Rivera, and then they signed Jack Del Rio. Pretty good combination.
Yeah.
But they're still run by Daniel Snyder, and they'll still only win 4 games. So.
Oh yeah, he'll be a meddler. I forgot about that.
If there's any way to ruin it, he will. Yeah, it's I don't know, but the fact that you know, all I can tell you is this. You know, they're interviewing a bunch of people, and when we had, you know. God, why am I going blank on the 49ers head coach who we had as our offensive coordinator?
Shanahan.
Shanahan. Yeah, and he turned Isaiah Crowell into Superman. You know, I can only imagine what Nick Chubb would do. Shanahan as a coach, but we got rid of it. That was the only short period of time that we were able to run the football in Cleveland. Was, you know, and so again, somebody who has a way of doing things that proves that he can succeed even with fucking Isaiah Crowell. That means the holes in the concept is broad and big enough that if you draft a guy with any speed or power whatsoever, the hole's going to be there. You just teach him when to cut back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a system that consistently works for every running back who plays in it. And we need to have somebody who understands the downfield passing game so that Baker Mayfield can get his balls back. That's what's going to lead this team forward. And you need a defensive coordinator who, and what we learned is that, all these teams that just made the playoffs, of which we were supposed to be one of those teams, they all were defensively built and they got no fucking offense whatsoever to speak of. Yeah. They're really snooze fest to watch. And if you had an offense that could put the week we put the Ravens behind, the Ravens fell. But with these teams dinking and dunking and giving the ball back to a team like the Ravens with their running game and their ability to hoard the clock and the big play capability of the quarterback, it's a recipe for disaster. You put some of these teams doing this dink and dunk shit behind the 8 ball, they ain't going to come back and beat you. They don't have the offensive line to throw the ball down the field. You got to figure out a way to do it. Because if you're getting on the dink and dunk thing that other teams are doing, you're late to the party, Mr. Haslam, like you always are. You got to be ahead of the curve. A few years ago, we were talking about it's an offensive game. Game is an offensive game. Well, now, look again. The defenses have taken over. And somebody has to have an original concept. Even a guy like Greg Roman, who has an amazing toolkit with the quarterback that he has. And I don't think Greg Roman's a genius by any stretch of the imagination. But anything different than what these defensive coordinators are seeing around the league confuses them. They prepare for 14 out of the 16 teams they play. And that's analytics. They don't prepare for the 2 who do things differently and they get their clock clean. And eventually they will play those teams in the playoffs and they will lose. A bunch of 9-7 type, 10-6 type teams playing one another, all playing one another to 16-9 conclusions ought to tell you something. Great. The next exciting thing in the NFL is going to be somebody who figures out a new way of running a passing downfield offense. That's the drill. So that's what I know.
Is there anybody in the playoffs right now you have as the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl? I don't know out of those 4 games if there's any one you're looking forward to in particular.
No, I'm just watching with interest. The first 4 games were just incredibly similar. Different faces, different uniform numbers, but the same result. And it became obvious to me, everything's become very homogenized in the league. So, you know what, another thing I realize, I'm going to say this to the Social Security guy, because, the thinner my face gets, the larger my nose is. Do you notice this? I'm starting to look like fucking W.C. Fields.
Huh?
What the fuck is this?
Get away from me, boy. You bother me.
I'm going to have to get the Groucho glasses. This is getting stupid.
And a derby.
Ha cha 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 cha.
You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to get one of those ant farms and... That's fucked up, man.
Could you see the Titans coming in and beating the Ravens, though?
No.
If they stick with the run game? Oh, so you don't see no chance? Okay.
Nope.
No, the Ravens can actually make explosive plays. So, unlike the Patriots, the Ravens can actually have 25, 30, 35-yard plays. So, there's no way that the Titans can keep up with in a track meet like that.
They'll clog up the line. They'll stop Henry, and they'll make Tannehill try to win, and that ain't going to happen.
Another journeyman quarterback who's another John Kitna 8-8 kind of guy who isn't going to lead his team to victory any more than Kirk Cousins would lead his team to victory any more than any of these guys. That Josh Allen could lead his team to victories. Circumstances will conspire. They'll win some, they'll lose some, but they're not the real deal. And I wanted to save the Tom Brady thing for last. That was my only enjoyable thing was watching those cocksuckers lose. And, and it's nothing against Tom Brady, okay? Or Gisele Bundchen, nothing against these folks because Tom Brady's had a great career. Nothing can take that away from him. It's Belichick. it's Belichick who once Brady's on the downside of the career, Belichick don't win. He loses in the first fucking round. He's a goddamn wild card guy. And, you know, if Brady's gone next year, we'll see what Belichick's record is. And we'll see how fast he retires. So he'll go down in history as the guy who got into the Hall of Fame based on one man, and it's not himself.
Oh, I have a feeling he'll become the director of player personnel for the Patriots. He won't officially. He can't quit. He's like an addict at this point.
Yeah.
He can't quit football.
But how many more years?
Die.
How many more years does he have on his contract? Or is he a free agent too, Bill Belichick, after this?
I think he's got 2 or 3. But
Okay, yeah, because I hear the rumors that Brady's going to the Chargers so that they can help sell tickets in the stadium next year. And he can brand himself in the LA market, sort of like LeBron James did. Even Patriots fans were making
not,
he's
not. He's not entering that shit show. Are you kidding me?
I mean, the rebrand of the LA market in his name.
If he goes anywhere, he'll go to like Miami or something, where he can at least enjoy the weather.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to next week's games. We'll see what happens. But I got to get off the air now. Hey, it's been over an hour, and I've enjoyed spending my time. I'm so happy for the time we spent together. Right.
Just to have a laugh or sing a song.
Yeah, nothing quite like Carol Burnett to finish the show. Yeah, and it's sad to think that Harvey Korman and
Tim Conway.
both dead.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really too bad. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in to this edition of Boohead Radio. We'll be back again on Friday, doing it all over again. We'll see what happens in the coming weekend. We'll analyze and break down those football games for you. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.